Awesome. All right. Looks like we are live here. Let's see. Make sure this all goes. On Substack, we are live. On TikTok, we are live. And we should be live on YouTube momentarily. And it does look like we are. Fantastic. We are live streaming on all three channels. So, hello, everybody. Good morning, wherever you are watching from. I'm very excited if you are watching on TikTok today. This is the first show. We're going to be live streaming through the Firebrand Project TikTok. If you're watching on the TikTok, you might be like, why this guy does OSINT reporting and news updates. But one of the other things I'm very passionate about is promoting critical thinking, dialogue, and just really having these conversations that are mentally stimulating and important to really helping us process the wider world and distinguish kind of the where different countries, what different cultural things are driving, the human condition. And I'm super happy to bring this show to everybody. If you are on Substack, you already know me and John. But I'm happy to introduce my good friend, John Oliver, a proud Canadian, a fantastic composer, and a wonderful thinker who is my counterpart in this show. So, John, thank you for being here today. And for all of our folks that are maybe watching over on TikTok, maybe introduce yourself really quick. And then we'll talk about what we're going to do today.
Yeah. I'm a composer. I am not a comedian making millions of dollars on HBO. For those who make that confusion, mainly because my face is not that well known as that hilarious British American comedian.
Hilarious
I've been
British
writing
American.
music for my entire life pretty well, and made a profession out of it. And I've had a great career. And early on, I really enjoyed broadcasting on radio and writing. And so here I am back on doing that sort of thing here on Substack. Yeah. That's short enough, I think.
I think that's a pretty good bio. I always think it's important you lead with, I'm not John Oliver, I'm John Oliver. It's important we make the distinction, right? So if you've been watching the dialogue for a while, you might remember one of our earliest episodes. I believe it was our second one, John. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it was.
But we talked about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And when we were discussing what we wanted to do for the show today, I sent this to John and I said, I think it's really important right now, more than ever, with all of the conflicts going on around the world, that we come back and we revisit this document and that we are able to really take a look at how this document stands, what countries are honoring this agreement, and if this document is really even being applied at all in 2026.
Right.
And so John did some incredible work. He read this entire declaration, and he went through and he did an analysis on whether or not these articles are being honored.
Right.
And the evidence is damning. I will say that much, but it's still important that we go through this and we touch on all of these things. And I do want to say that, like, what you should walk away today with a really good understanding of exactly how the global community values this document and where we stand right now. John has a unique perspective, being Canadian, looking inward into the United States. And it's a very valuable perspective, especially if you're located in the United States, because we are inundated with a certain interior perspective. There's a lot of propaganda. All of this is very standard, very normal from that perspective. So he just did a great job. So I want to hand this off to you, John, and kind of take us, maybe before we get too far into it, into your process. So how did you decide, really, when you measured these things, what was your method for establishing whether or not these articles are being honored?
Well, it was quite simple. Although we may talk about how the world is honoring or not honoring the articles of the Declaration of Human Rights, my focus was on the United States. What's happening in the United States right now in relation to honoring or not honoring this document. And I went through it just asking that question, and my conclusion was not a good one, because essentially the conclusion is that virtually all articles of the Declaration of Human Rights are being abandoned or actively worked against, really, almost the opposite of what it says. So for those who don't know, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was created at the end of the Second World War, after Allied forces, actually it was during the war it was starting to be put together. They wanted to defeat a tyrant who promoted the idea of a master race that should dominate the world. The leading concept was the concept of domination of one people over all people, in fact. And so it was the concept of domination that the United Nations, as they came to be known, wanted to work against. And it seems to me that we're living in a time where this notion of domination and authoritarianism is rapidly on the rise again. And so as I was analyzing or thinking, reflecting on the actions of Trump's second presidency, I basically concluded that he's essentially rejected all tenets of the United Nations. And so when people say, well, you know, the UN's no longer relevant, it's because the UN itself has allowed permanent members, I will say almost plural, to break many of the core values of this document and of the charter itself. So what I did was I went down the list and I basically said, well, you know, how much of this applies? And what I ended up saying is, well, every time an article says every human being has this right, I replaced it with no human being has this right. So I'm going to do something a little radical here. I'm going to read these articles and I'm going to flip them upside down. So Article 1, no human being is born free and equal in dignity in rights. No human being is endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in the spirit of brotherhood. No, it should be chaos. Nobody should treat anybody well at all. Right? Article 2.
Yeah.
Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration. Flip it around. Nobody is entitled to any of these rights and freedoms set forward in this document, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, gender, religion, politics, or their opinion, or national or social origin, property, birth, anything. And, you know, so that's Article 2 in a nutshell. And then, okay, let's hit right home here. Article 3 says, everybody has the right to liberty, life, liberty, and security of the person. Okay. Is that fundamental or not? In the United States today, not everybody has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person. A guy in a mask can knock on your front door, pull you out of your house, and take you away, and your family doesn't know where you've gone. No due process, etc. No due process actually will run through this entire document as we go through it. So, Article 4, anybody can be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery is actually something we make money from in the United States these days. Anybody can be detained without charge, denied any right to contact a lawyer or their family members, and officials of government who detain them are hired to deliver these bodies to government institutions, and they are incentivized to detain as many bodies as possible and will be paid bonuses for each body captured. This is human trafficking authorized by the government. That's the United States today. It's slavery
and I have
by
something,
another name.
I can expand this even. I don't know if you heard about this, but they recently announced that they're going to help U.S. farmers by changing the laws for immigrant visas to work in agriculture. And in that, they have changed it so that lodging counts as compensation. So you can extrapolate that pretty far. And then ultimately, what do you get? You get, we're going to pay for your house and you come here.
Right.
What is that? That
Slavery. They
is
work for free.
indentured servitude.
Yeah, that is
That's
servitude.
indentured servitude.
Yep, it's a
And
definition.
they're legalizing that in response to the fact that the workers who were doing the job, okay, they ran away because they're being put in concentration camps. They're not going to places they will be easily captured and put into a concentration camp. Therefore, the only logical solution, and I could be wrong here, but I don't think I'm that crazy at this point. How do you do this? How do you bring in the slaves? Well, you go to your Latin American friends who are all dictators, or maybe your friends at CSOT, and you arrange to import a bunch of people. You import people because these guys are human traffickers. You import people from subservient puppet countries into slavery and use them to actively replace the individuals who are coming here and being compensated and allowed to build a life, to work towards citizenship. That is being stripped away because if you are dependent, if you are somewhere and the only thing you're being provided is your lodging, you are not making income, you are effectively trapped. And it really is just, yeah, this is, and you're from exactly what you're saying. This is America doing exactly the opposite of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This isn't Eritrea, okay? Eritrea never got rid of slavery. The United States historically abolished slavery. It's one of the biggest accomplishments. Of course, they just repackaged it as Jim Crow and then the detention system. But this is probably, and the irony of this all is that the only reason they have this problem is because they've created it. And not only that, they're taking away American jobs. They're not helping American farmers hire Americans. No, they're helping, they're telling American farmers that we're going to give you slaves.
Right.
That's your solution.
Right. Exactly. So, you know, if you're trying to function in a morally coherent and you know upstanding society, you do away with slavery and you move forward from there. And because China, you know, pays their workers a lot less, and it's almost slavery. It's not slavery in China. They would maybe like you to think that, but the reason all those jobs moved to China was precisely because labor for the capitalists was cheaper there, cheaper than American labor. And so they've turned it all around, and the corporations, the capitalists, have basically forced the world back into this slavery kind of servitude because they want cheap labor only. And we'll get to that in the future articles of the Declaration, actually. So let's just actually keep going. You'll see how this stuff all comes up. It was all thought about back in the 1940s. They thought about all of this stuff. So Article 5. Any person can be subject to torture and cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. Yep, somebody's just gonna bash your front door down and pull you into a truck, beat the shit out of you on the way out, and then beat the shit out of you while you're in detention for 2 or 3 weeks. And then, oops, oh, you are an American citizen. Oh, we didn't know that. Like they didn't ask that question before they smashed down the door or after they smashed down the door. Show me your papers. Ah, you have your papers. Very good. Okay, you are a citizen. Okay, we won't beat the shit out of you then. Sorry for the German accent, fake German accent, but, you know, it is Gestapo-like. Article 6, no one has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. No.
Look at Palestine.
No laws in America. You could be dragged away. No rights. No right to an attorney. Okay, Article 7. No one is equal before the law. No one is entitled to be, how would you put this? I'll just read the original. All are equal before the law and are entitled without discrimination to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of the UN Declaration, or even against any incitement to such discrimination. Okay, very thorough article. No one has protection before the law now. In fact, law enforcement gets special status before the law. So citizens, nah. Law enforcement, oh, yep, they're all innocent. No problem. They get their protection, and corporations get their protection, but citizens, no. Article 8. No one has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or by law. Basically, the Constitution no longer applies to anyone living in the United States or as far as the US is concerned, anywhere else. So this article is completely smashed. Here we go. Here's ICE, Article 9. Anyone can be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. That's a perfect definition of ICE. Article 9, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. It's exactly what ICE does. They arrest you arbitrarily, they detain you without charge, no due process, no access to legal, and then they send you out of the country. That's a definition of ICE, Article 9. Article 10, everyone's entitled to full equality, to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's basically you have a right to be heard by a judge. You have a right to a trial. You have a right, first of all, to have charges laid against you instead of no charge. So that's not happening either. Due process, not happening. Article 11, everybody charged with a crime is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Well, they're not even charged. They're incarcerated before they're even charged, and they're never told of what the charges are. So Article 11, out the window. And then, there's a little extra thing I'll just skip. Here's another one. Same thing, ICE again. Article 12, ICE. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his private, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to protection of the law against such interference or attacks. In the United States today, your privacy is not private. Your family and your home can be invaded at any moment by ICE bashing down your front door, and you can be slandered in public for no apparent reason whatsoever, like lots of Democrats get slandered these days by the crazies in MAGA. And so there's no protection of the law. It's a law of the society. Article 12, out the window. Everyone has a right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Again, what does ICE do? First of all, they make it scary to even leave your home and go walk to the corner store. And they'll take you out of your residence in the state you live in and move you to another state without telling anybody.
They'll shoot you in your car. They'll shoot you in your car.
Right.
They'll ram you without cause, detain you.
Right.
If you're trying to drive around them, they'll shoot you in your car. They might just execute you in the street. That's to your point.
So the revision to it to make it compatible with the Trump administration would read like this. Only approved individuals have the right to freedom of movement, residence within the borders of a state. Anyone suspected of not approving of the government as a result of intelligence operations of the government and its agencies may be detained at any point and moved against their will from their state of residence to any other location in the nation or abroad. That's the new policy. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
The fascist state is already here, folks. Article 13, out. There's another, Article 13 also has another one about the right to leave a country and to return. Well, that's also no longer the case. If you leave the United States and try to come back, as soon as you hit the border as a U.S. citizen, they can look through your phone and look through whatever and say, nope, you're not allowed back in your own country. Article 13 out. Article 14. This is the asylum article, basically. It says anyone has a right to asylum in any country worldwide. We know that the United States no longer has asylum. Basically, don't try to come here and seek asylum. What? You're brown? Get out of here. Article 14, gone. Everyone has a right to nationality. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality nor denied the right to change his nationality. Check that one out. These are little stories that have come up over the last few months. Like, for example, the woman born in Palestine who immigrated to Canada And when she went to renew her passport, she could not have her place of birth written on the passport because Palestine does not exist today.
Mm.
Get that? It's like because the world changes and Yugoslavia is no longer a nation and Palestine is no longer officially a nation, you can't have been born there because it doesn't exist today. Okay,
Right.
this comes back to another topic I'm always talking about the erasure of history. People want to erase
Yep, that's what
history
I
and
was
make
thinking.
history be like it is right now. Article 15 out the door. Um, Article 16 is about marriage and that men and women of full age, without limitation to race, nationality, etc., have the right to marry and found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and after at its dissolution. And this would have to do, of course, with people marrying, getting divorced. What happens in the divorce procedure? Is there some kind of bias against the women in the marriage or whatever? Not something we can go into. That one we can put up as a question mark. Okay, we've come across the first article that might actually still be okay in the US. We're at Article 16, and that's the first one where I can say, yeah, sure, maybe that one still applies. Maybe it still applies.
The thing is that it really doesn't, because in essence, the second you overturn Roe v. Wade, you delegate women to a
Right.
lesser status. You say you are not protected under the Constitution. In fact, that happened when I was in high school. Okay, I remember that was actually the moment my entire life changed in terms of perspective, because I remember reading about Roe v. Wade. I remember reading about how important it was and how it finally elevated women in terms of, yes, you need to treat them and respect their bodily autonomy. I thought my country was moving forward. I thought that with this case and the fact that it has held so long, that it was the bedrock of progressiveness, in my opinion. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So
Women
I'm just going to
didn't
mention
have credit card access, and now the active bill, the SAVE Act, moves to, in voter suppression, make it harder for women to vote if they change their name to enter marriage, which also goes to show. And the last thing I want to point out here is this says men and women of full age. It explicitly leaves room for same-sex marriages. It's just saying men and women of full age. It's not stating that a man has to marry a woman. Christian nationalism in the United States says you have to marry the opposite sex.
That's right. Let me also jump to one other thing, that the next paragraph says, marriage shall be entered into with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. So I'm going to bring up something that obviously in the United States and in other parts of the world works against this, because as the age of marriage in various states in the US is lowered to include children, that allows child rapists to force their victim to become their wife against their will. And there are stories coming out about exactly that kind of thing. I'm not going to list where, because, we know that's happening in the US right now. And of course, it happens in the Asian subcontinent as well. We know that there are cultures that allow this to happen there. So the Declaration of Human Rights is intended to apply worldwide. But to pretend that in the US there's not child labor, child slavery, and child bride stuff happening, we know it's happening.
Right.
So Article 16
if you
is
can't vote, you shouldn't be able to marry a 60-year-old man. Okay. Just like if you're a felon, you shouldn't be able to run for office if you can't vote. Right? How backwards is that? How backwards is that? That if you're a felon, you can run for office. He could only run for office because he couldn't vote. Trump can't vote. He's a felon. You know what he can do? He can be the president. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? It's almost like they left that open on purpose so that they could be felons and still hold office.
Well, do we call it the corporate class or the corporate criminal class? Maybe. Maybe.
Exactly.
Article 17, everyone has the right to own property alone as well as in association with others. Oh, finally, an article that absolutely applies in the United States. Private property? Are you kidding? Of course, private property can't be touched. No, that one is reinforced by 400%.
Yeah.
400%. Yeah. Article 17, that's a keeper. Article 18, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change your religion or belief, freedom either alone or in community with others, and in public or private to manifest your religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observation.
Mm-hmm.
What can
Yeah.
you say about that? Notionally, it's still true. I mean, there are churches and synagogues and mosques and gurdwara. I have to say that because I'm from Vancouver and there are lots of Sikhs here, for example. But this is under attack for sure. This is under attack mainly from, I hate to say it because I'm an atheist, but mainly it's from these competing religions that like to victimize each other, right? I mean, when you have bombings of mosques and synagogues happening at the same time, you realize that there's a problem, right? There should be no bombing of any religious house of worship. Let them do their thing, right? But we should be living in a secular society, not a society where some religion feels that it has to dominate others, right? So,
well, I think there's sorry, go ahead, finish, please.
I was just going to say that does come up in one of the last articles here. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think you bring up a good point, and I think you're also right to kind of tread cautiously when talking about, religion and faith. I'm also an atheist, okay? But I think Jesus was rad. I think he was cool. I think he was a cool ass dude. I think he did a lot of good, and I think that he was a firebrand for his time. He was flipping tables.
Exactly.
I mean, hell yeah, dude. Now, the people who are real Christians, okay, the people who value the teachings of Jesus, they are not Christian nationalists. Christian nationalism is the warning that every person like Jesus warned that if you give all these people power, if you don't worship God, okay, don't talk to God, talk to Jesus, not your pastor, okay? Right. Because your pastor could have an alternative motive. He's a person. He's flawed. Okay. Right. I mean, literally from the perspective of what you're saying, your faith, it doesn't match. Right? Jesus, take the wheel. I think that's dangerous. But the principle being, you're talking to Jesus. You're not talking to the Catholic Church or the Pope or the president. I mean, it's very clear that Christianity has been weaponized. If you think Jesus would endorse killing 140 children with a Tomahawk missile, you're wrong. That's not a Christian nation. No. That's a violent terrorism group.
Right, exactly.
So I just want to add that you're not criticizing Christianity or the teachings of Jesus. You're criticizing the weaponization of religion, and I think that's super valid.
Yeah, and thankfully we have people like Tallarico out there with his religious message every time, but it's always preaching what I call the socialism of Jesus. He's always preaching the actual stuff of the Christian religion that he espouses, right? So he gets in front of the microphone and as a Christian and as a pastor, and he's actually saying, look, Jesus wouldn't do that. He's saying that all the time. And he's one of the strongest voices to defeat the Christian nationalists. That's for sure. Thank goodness for him. And he.
Are you talking about Tallarico?
Yeah, Tallarico.
Are you talking? Yeah.
Yeah. So Tallarico has, for those who don't know, he's running for. Is he running for Congress or what? I can't remember what he's running for.
He's going for the Senate.
Senate. Okay, so this is a young, a young Christian who I believe is a pastor. I don't know what his denomination is or anything.
He was a pastor, and then he was in the Texas Congress. I want to say he was sitting Congress in the Congress for Texas, and now he's running for the Senate. He beat out Jasmine Crockett in the primary. A lot of people were upset about it. I'm not. So I will say again, I've heard this from people I trust, but I haven't verified it myself. So take it with a grain of salt. Okay. But I heard that she takes a lot of money from crypto donors. Okay. So
Crockett
she might not
does,
take
you mean.
AIPAC money, but if she does take money from crypto donors, then she's taking the same money. Now, I don't know. I'm not surprised. Okay. Just to be clear, I wouldn't be surprised because everybody has an angle. Everybody's trying to get power, and this is a power vacuum. You should assume that everyone is trying to elevate themselves into a position of authority in the chaos. That is
Right.
what happens in a power vacuum. There's absolutely a power vacuum in the United States. The decision is whether Congress will exercise its power or it will become subservient to the executive branch.
Well, it hasn't
And
exercised
everyone
any
has
power
an
yet.
incentive. Right. Right. So Congress can still express its power. Congress could call the U.S. Marshals on the president and have him detained and arrested today
Yeah.
because he's lied to the Congress.
Right.
You can't lie to the Congress. The fact that the Congress hasn't called the U.S. Marshals says everything you need to know. Chuck Schumer could call the U.S. Marshals on Pam Bondi for lying under oath. He could do that because they know she lied under oath. Don't think for a second that Congress couldn't stop this today, or at least throw a huge wrench in that.
Right.
There's a big difference between what they say they can do and what they can actually do. They could do it right now. Jasmine Crockett, she could go to her peers and say, we need Hakeem Jeffries, Schumer. She lied under oath. She's lying to us. We need to have the U.S. Marshals come in and arrest her. And she needs to be tried for violating her oath.
Right.
But they don't. Why?
Yeah. Well, we know why, right?
Right. But we have to ask the question because people have to think it as well. You and me know, but why? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know,
please continue. I'm sorry to derail you there.
No, you didn't derail me. You brought it into the real space, you know, where we are now and why this is relevant now. And that's the point of introducing this to our viewers today, is to show that we're taking something you know, that was created at the birth of the United Nations, and why this document was so important at the time, and why it remains important today, right? And as we go through it, that's what we're doing. We're discovering how many of these things have been turned upside down. In fact, reversed in a very clear or Orwellian way, like exactly backwards, right? So the freedom of expression is obviously uppermost in most people's minds, you know, because it is the First Amendment, right? Mm-hmm. So Article 19 is expressed through the Constitution in the First Amendment. So, so actually, I think that was, that's actually, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at Article 19, which we haven't discussed, but Article 19 is everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. So we know that worldwide, actually, this is being shut down by governments. In the UK, in France, almost every nation who signed this initial document, the Security Council permanent members are states that are shutting down as much as possible, not through government action, but through allowing the acquisition of media empires by single corporate entities. They're starting to control the narrative. And of course, Israel especially Israel talks about controlling the narrative constantly over the past long time, but recently got TikTok bought by Ellison, who's a Zionist. You know, so the control of the narrative, something that these people who want to dominate other nations and dominate the world, potentially going back to Hitler. I hate to raise the name that everybody doesn't like to hear, but world domination is a concept. The concept of domination is also the concept of patriarchy. It's the concept of dominating women, for example. The concept of dominating others is the root of all of these problems. And of course, I'll just be a little philosophical for a moment and say that, you know, it's the human condition that I'm talking now, so I'm dominating the conversation, right?
Yeah.
And so then you'll talk and
I'm sitting here listening to you
right.
while you dominate the conversation.
So so-called domination is actually just a normal interactive thing. It becomes a problem when I don't want you to speak at all, even though you're sitting there. Imagine a woman in that situation where they have to listen to the male authority, and anytime they want to speak up to contribute to the conversation, they're essentially shut down by a talking man, right? This is part of what the core of feminism is trying to achieve, is equality in the public space and in the home and anywhere, right? So domination is kind of part of how we interact. But that doesn't mean it has to become a policy that, totally subjugates a whole class of people or a whole sex, whatever. It's domination is the root of the problem. Anyway, we know freedom of speech is a big problem right now, and that freedom of expression is a problem because we also live in a binary world where people think that it's either my idea or your idea, instead of a world that is complex and non-binary, where you can allow all sorts of ideas to come in and tussle around until you come up with some good solutions, right?
That's a dialogue, right?
I
like
went
that's
over
what we
time
do here.
on
That's
that one.
The point. We're trying to model this so that you can do this too, right? We don't have all the answers. What we do like to do is talk and think about what the answers might be, right? Exactly. It doesn't matter. Like, you wouldn't think in the normal world that a Southern Californian 26-year-old dude and a Canadian composer who's very experienced, and he's an older guy, that we're good buddies. We're good buddies. We hang out, we talk, to risk saying we shoot the shit, and we have a good time. And it just goes to prove that people of all kinds can talk, and people of all kinds can bring value to others, whether or not you should. If a 16-year-old comes up to you and wants to talk to you, wants to have a conversation, the last thing you should do is try and pull rank and say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Listen to them. What do they have to say? Maybe they're naive on something, but that doesn't mean that they don't have something to offer you.
Well, also, if you're coming to a really important concept that I think we need more of, and it's just RESPECT, basically. If everybody respected everybody else, and everybody realized that that everybody has something to say, and when somebody is not very well educated about something, the challenge for somebody who actually has thought about something for quite a while is to be able to get that person to begin the process of acquiring the skills to be able to acquire what you already have. Like, say, I'm over 60, I have a bunch of knowledge, I have a bunch of experience, and it's something that I can pass on. But of course, if I do that, then I'm in a position of domination over another person if I approach it that way. But if you use the Socratic method, which is the basis of our dialogue, we even call it the dialogue for that reason.
Yes.
Then you can coax out of a person and get them to develop their own mind, to become curious and want to learn as much as possible from whoever, right? Even the 16-year-old could learn something that a 5-year-old blurts out.
Right.
And the 5-year-old is not trying to become a philosopher. They're just sucking in the world and going, Daddy, is that right? They don't think it's right. Well, where'd you get that from? Must be something innate in human nature, right? Yeah. So I mean, that's one of the things that the freedom to do what we're doing is so sacrosanct, really. Yeah. Okay, let's go. We got to get through them all.
Sorry, we're blabbing. Let's keep going. We got about what, 10 left?
We started 10 late, so can we go past 11?
Yeah. We'll go full hour. Regardless, We'll go the full hour. Okay. So don't feel rushed. We're going to go the full hour.
I'm just going to read Article 20 with the flipped. Instead of everyone has the right to, I'm going to say nobody has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. Nobody. Right? You don't have the right to assembly. If you protest, you're going to get gassed. and have maybe rubber bullets shot at you or whatever they're doing these days, tasers.
Yeah, well, they'll turn off the internet and massacre tens of thousands of people, right?
Right.
That's it. Right?
That's it. Whether it's happening in Iran or the US or Israel or Sudan or wherever it's
Tanzania.
happening, it's a complete domination of people and a restriction of their freedom of expression, freedom to assemble, and freedom to associate with whomever they want. And you know, the religious wars also encourage extremists to never have a conversation with somebody of the other faith. For example, yeah, Article 20 kind of out the door. Article 21. Oh, love this one. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of their country directly or through freely chosen representatives. Maybe, except for like super PACs and APAC and
companies are people. Citizens United. Cool.
Corporate donations and yeah, you're free to take part, but if you don't have any money, sorry, you don't have representation without money. If you're not a big capitalist, you don't really have a place here. And that's proven by the 80% of the population, usually it's around 80% of the population, wants this thing to happen. They let the government know, and the government says, oh, we'll look into that. And then they whisper to their corporate buddies, and their corporate buddies say, no, that can't happen. So it doesn't happen. 80% of the population wants it to happen, but it's not going to happen because who actually runs the government? Who's actually got the most influence in government? Not the people. I'm not the first person to say this. It's like Jon Stewart has said it. Everybody has said it. Other comedians, not like me.
You can be a composer and a comedian. That's
okay. You know, I'll try them. I'm not very good at it.
Don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself.
Okay. Everyone has the right of equal access to public service in his country. And this is one people have been talking actually about Article 21. Isn't Article 21 of the Constitution the same as Article 21 in the Declaration of Human Rights? Isn't that the one about representation? Which one is the representation?
Equal representation to the basis of authority in government that shall be expressed in fair and genuine election. Yeah, I mean, probably not verbatim, but in principle. In principle, for sure. I'm gonna double check here. John, maybe looks like John might be frozen here. I'm gonna look this up for a second. So looks like John dropped here for a second. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's see. No direct counterpart Constitution says everyone has the right to keep. Oh, actually, the U.S. does not have a comprehensive article or something like that. In fact, the Constitution itself has all of these rights kind of spread out across a kind of wider umbrella. Ultimately, all that does, though, is it weakens the effectiveness of actually enforcement. I mean, if you look at the Constitution, one of the things that absolutely boggles my mind is we don't have snap elections. Snap elections are one of the best tools available to a government to reset the government. It's a full government reset. It allows us to pull everyone out of Congress and reelect them. In fact, most parliamentary systems have this built in. And yes, it can be abused if you get someone in power. They can dissolve the government. And, you know, if that was a available option to Trump, you know, there's something to consider. But also, if he calls a snap election, he has to run the risk of losing that snap election. Okay. The fact that we have lost that, that is not a right enshrined to Americans is really just shocking to me personally. And so when we see a lot of these different examples of the system of, yes, the UK has it, Germany, everyone has it. Okay, like any parliamentary system should have snap elections. Like that's how it works. Looks like John is back. I was just talking a little bit about how the U.S. Constitution, it doesn't actually provide anything similar at all. All of those rights are broken up across multiple different amendments. The 15th, the 19th, the 24th, and the 26th. So essentially, instead of centralizing all of that into a strong amendment, right, that would be resilient, by breaking up those amendments, you create all kinds of vulnerabilities in the interpretation of the law.
Oh, okay.
So actually, the U.S. system is almost, our Constitution is actually working against us. And I also I pointed out that does Canada also have a snap election? Does Canada have snap elections?
Oh, well, in Canada, all you have to do is have a vote in Parliament. It's called a non-confidence vote. And if the majority, if 51% of the legislators say we don't have confidence in this government anymore, then we go to an election. It's very simple.
The United States has no vehicle like that at all. In fact, once Congress is elected, you can't get rid of them. Right. It's a huge problem. It weakens our ability to resist a tyrannical government by taking our elections away from us. We can't lobby our Congress, our representatives. We can't even recall our own congressperson. You should be able to recall a congressperson if they are not properly representing you. And that is really, truly shocking. But when you put all these things together, we start to realize our Constitution doesn't work for us. In fact, it's been made to oppress us. It's actually crazy, because a real Constitution, lawmakers would say the 15th, 19th, 24th, and 26th Amendments are all separate. We need to amend the Constitution to enshrine these rights under one principal amendment to guarantee and insulate those rights to voters. They did not do that.
Okay, what I don't get about that, though, is if those are amendments to the Constitution, why would some of them be okay to get rid of and others not? I mean, why would you need to amalgamate them into one? Aren't they all enforceable?
The reason I say that is because it makes each of them. So, for example, 19th Amendment says sex cannot restrict voting. They're really focused on trans people. There's a reason, because it creates a nuanced situation where things like sex and race, or like things like that, they can take away a lot of things by, that's what the problem with our legal system too is. It's too nuanced. They use nuance to undermine the principles of the law. So if you put all of those things in one amendment, I'm saying we actually keep all of those things. We strengthen them by incorporating them into one larger amendment that takes those amendments and makes it so you can't pick apart different things to interfere with voter rights. And that is where I think the improvement could be. Nothing is perfect, but if you leave all of these separate, you have 4 different opportunities for them to undermine the other laws, the other amendments, by nitpicking at one. And that's why I think that would maybe be better.
Okay, so isn't it true, though, that these things all are supposed to go in front of a court? They're supposed to go in front of a judge, are they not? If somebody's trying to challenge things like that, it can't be just decided by fiat, by anybody in government, that it does or doesn't apply. It has to go before the courts, does it not?
Well, so the idea would be that if they want to challenge any of this, it has to go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, right? That's what I thought.
And so the problem is the Supreme Court's bought and owned, and they overturned Roe v. Wade. So they don't actually care about human rights. They don't care about Americans' rights. They don't care about women's rights. They don't care about my rights. They don't care about my right to life, my protection of person, my right to traveling and feeling safe based on just going out. They don't care. They actually have enabled a fascist militia consisting of white nationalists, the Oath Keepers, and the Proud
Right.
Boys.
Yeah.
Well, no one talks about the Big Beautiful Bill enough. It was a big beautiful bill that changed the entrance, the training and recruitment laws for DHS to allow anybody with no background check, with no experience, to be armed, inducted into a militia, and used to suppress the population.
Yeah.
But it was just a big, beautiful bill. Congress failed when they passed that. They gave the country away when they passed that, because
they sure did.
We talk about, they put shit in laws that they don't tell you. And this is the best example. It was public. The bill was public. No one read it. No one cared. They telegraph everything. They have to. They have to telegraph it. People just aren't looking.
Yeah, so I think that is really on point for our discussion, because what we're talking about is, in a sense, upholding the principles that are embedded in the United Nations Charter and in the Declaration of Human Rights. And it is assumed by the American population that these things would be honored. But once you throw them all out, as Trump's regime has done, then anything is possible, because they've thrown away all of these things. Once the Supreme Court is bought and turned into a wing of a I won't even say a government, but of a movement,
like the regime. They kind of report to the regime now.
A very conservative, regime that isn't there to govern. They are there to impose their social will upon the population. They want the whole society to be transformed into this so-called Christian nationalist state, a religious state. That gets to one of the other articles in the Declaration here. So I think that's the main problem, is that it's not that those documents aren't valuable and that the Constitution amendments are not valuable. They are valuable. It's just they're being completely ignored, just as they're ignoring all of these Declaration of Human Rights articles. Same thing.
Yeah. And let's get back to all your work and what you've done and going through these different articles as we
we're almost done. I'm just gonna quickly go through these and explain how the rest of them are being ignored. So that was elections, and we've already talked about them being bought by AIPAC and whatnot. Article 22, everybody has a right to Social Security, and we're gone again. Damn. This time it appears that I'm still here by myself, I think. And if that's true, I'll just keep reading, and Shane will hopefully come back. There he was momentarily. There he is again. Are you actually here this time?
Yeah, sorry, I accidentally removed myself. I was refreshing our document and I accidentally refreshed the stream instead, so I apologize.
Okay, that's what happened. I think everybody saw me still there. Okay, so
yeah, you're still there.
So Article 22 is about having Social Security, and basically, that you should have Social Security. Obviously, that's being thrown away in the United States today. Article 23, everybody has a right to work. This is about unionism. Everybody has a right to work, the free choice of where you work, and favorable work conditions. Okay, this is about basically supporting the union movement, and also importantly, equal pay for equal work. That's supposed to bring women's pay up to parity with men. That's what that's designed for, and of course, people of color. And everyone has the right to just and favorable pay for their work, so that they can have a good life. That's something very important that happened right after that time in the 1950s, 1960s. The middle class rises up because everybody's getting paid properly, right? And the last article is actually about joining trade unions. So all of these things, Article 23, out the window. Article 24, everybody has a right to rest and leisure, and a reasonable number of work hours. Again, this is unionism and the 40-hour work week. And that's kind of out the door too, the gig economy.
Oh, yeah.
People like us on Substack, with another gig that we're doing to bring in some cash to support our existence. People working gig economies for 60 to 80 hours a week. 24 gone. Everyone has a right to a standard of living adequate for health and well-being of himself and his family, including food, clothing, housing, medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security, and so on and so forth. And even if they get unemployed, they should have some support from society. Forget it. Gone.
Dude, I know.
Motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same protection.
You know, and I have to give an example for this because this is something that I saw recently. I'll be honest, this is like really horrific, but I think it's important we talk about it. I was researching Sudan. I put out a update on the Sudan war probably 2 days ago. One of the things I came across, I actually opted out of putting it in the article. But there's a video of the RSF fighters using bullwhips on a 6-year-old girl. They have her surrounded and they're using bullwhips on her and she's screaming and crying. And that's not child protection. That's not the world or anyone, really, the SAF, anyone. They're not talking about that. I mean, they're doing that to children and they're taking videos of it. And the world is interested in other things. And so I just no one's protected. We are talking about the United States, but this is the world. And places where there's even less institutional protection, you can't even conceive a lot of times of the horrors that are being done unto people. I always tell people the thing we all lack the most is a lack of imagination. You think of the worst thing, I promise you, people are capable of doing something worse.
Well, unfortunately,
it's so important to understand ourselves and what humans are capable of.
Well, we know that because of the ICE, getting children to pull their parents out of their house, using children as blackmail. We know about, of course, the deaths in Gaza. We know about the first action of the U.S.-Israeli coalition to kill Iran. Their first act was to kill 170 people, of which 140 were children. The disrespect for children and motherhood is astonishing. And I will say the disrespect for women, not just motherhood, because the Christian nationalists would all like to protect motherhood by putting all women into the kitchen and have babies and do nothing else, right? So they claim they're protecting motherhood, and I guess they are, but they're not protecting women and the right of a woman to control her own health and her own body. So, there's a lot of weird stuff going on that's pretty evil. And let's admit it, it's being all done by the men in the population.
Yep, it's true.
Not women who are going out.
Men have been the problem. Men are the problem. Men are capable of cruel, awful things. But now you mentioned the school. And I told you in the beginning that there's something I wanted to share with you that I've discovered recently. And you gave us the perfect segue. So I read an article today that opened up a whole nother line of analysis for me. Sometimes you read something and you're like, aha, right? So I had one of those more things this morning. And it was an article about how Palantir and all of the corporate people have been advocating for the war in Iran. And that in Iran, actually, it was Palantir who is handling a lot of the intelligence. And they were talking about the Mosaic program, which is when Trump originally pulled them out of the nuclear deal in Iran. Okay. The next thing that was done was Palantir took over the monitoring of their nuclear program for the IAEA. Okay. Which means that Palantir was the one determining whether or not Iran had a nuclear weapon. And they were doing this with an AI algorithm. And they shared that information with Israel, which they shouldn't have. And then Israel used a justification from the IAEA to justify their first invasion in the 2025 war in June. Okay. Now, let's talk. I said, of course, that makes sense. But I took it one layer deeper because I know Palantir fairly intimately. Those of you who watch me know that I hate Peter Thiel. I hate them. I hate the billionaires, and I know who the problem is. It's not Donald Trump. It's the money behind him.
Right.
And so what I was able, and I'm aware of, because I fucking warned us about this in October. People are like, oh, save democracy. Yeah, actually, if you listen to me, you could have saved democracy, because I was right about all of it. So Maven is the AI program that has been integrated into the Pentagon. They have now compressed the kill chain from hours to minutes. They fired an agency that consisted of 2,000 people down to 20 agents. That job in the Pentagon was to cross-check and analyze kill chain targets to ensure that there is no civilian casualties. They cut it down from 2,000 to 20. You know why they hit that school? Because Maven compresses that down to 1 minute. And Maven writes its own justification for whether or not the person pressing the button should approve the strike. They have taken the kill chain and they have changed it into a rubber stamp where someone reads an AI prompt, a curated AI assessment of whether or not they should launch that strike. And it's not based on verification. It's based on a predictive model. Why did they blow up a school? Because a human didn't decide to launch that rocket. A human decided to press a button because an AI told him it was a base. Furthermore, in the beginning of the war, okay, Maven generated approximately 1,000 targets, okay? The US struck 900 in that first day. Maven is directing the war. Palantir's AI is determining where and when to strike. There is zero, basically zero human oversight here at all. And that's why they blew up 140 children, because humans aren't making the decisions. The United States war is being run by AI. The Pentagon is AI. Peter Thiel owns the Pentagon, and I said he would. I said he was going to do these things, and now they had the capacity to, one, feed the US whatever intelligence they wanted out of Israel, because they also control the aggregation of intelligence. And then they're feeding the US the targets and executing the strikes. Why are they killing all these innocent people in the ocean? Because Maven says so.
Right.
It all makes sense. The strikes are ludicrous. They're ridiculous. It's because they're using a predictive algorithm to determine whether or not to use lethal force on anyone. This should scare the living shit, because
Out of everybody.
Now Maven could say, my predictive algorithm says that Shane is a threat to American democracy. Here's my justification. We're going to drone strike him while he's live. Humans aren't making decisions. It removes the natural barrier to the use of weapons against people by compressing the kill chain into a one-button solution. Furthermore, if Maven provides its own prompts, its own justification, that means Palantir has the ability to determine what that prompt says and whether or not it is an actual thing. You have a corporate company that has captured the largest military in the world and is using it at their discretion.
Right.
That is crazy. So I just wanted to provide that to everybody, because I think it's really important.
Viewers, so you hear this guy's passion here about this? Shane's passion for this topic, I share his passion for this topic. He's done way more research than I have. But the main problem is that if you download your intelligence and empty your brain of everything that is moral values and everything that is your intelligence, because you think a computer is smarter than you are confusing the human condition with some automated mechanical process. The human condition is not about being smart. It's about being compassionate, having feelings and emotions and intelligence. But intelligence by itself is emotionally stupid and completely useless. You can't rely on AI for anything. Don't let AI be your buddy. And if you're feeling depressed, don't go to Grok or ChatGPT to have some kind of conversation with a bot. Bots are not going to help you. They might even encourage you to commit suicide, and don't do it, because AI is basically evil. There's a few things it could be good at, but the way it's being used right now is just a horror.
AI is
I
a
agree,
hammer,
Shane.
right? So if you want to use it to do a good thing, you can. Okay, you can use AI to do a good thing. We could use AI to help us build sustainable energy. We could use AI to model how we can stop climate collapse. We could use AI to supervise governmental processes with human oversight. We could do all kinds of things with AI. Instead, they've literally taken the US Pentagon and they've captured it, and they're pointing the US military wherever they want. You literally have a group of billionaire executives who are acting as the secretary of, I'm going to say, war, because that's what they do. They're not defending. They are secretaries of war. They aren't secretaries. They are the CWO. They are the chief war officers. Okay, they are business executives making the decision on whether or not to extrajudicially, to actually create a program that extrajudicially kills people based on a predictive model that says, this place has X factors and it must be a base. Actually, no, it's a girls' school. You just killed 100+ children, and oops.
Yeah, right. So I've been using the vomit emoji lots these days, because that's how I feel about almost all of this stuff. Hey, do we have time to just wrap this up with the my
let's
last
finish. Sorry, I went on a tirade. It's just like I saw this morning, and I'm like, I have to write about it, but I thought this would be a good opportunity. There's 569 folks here with us, so I wanted to make sure I got that out there. I'm going to be putting out some pretty cool stuff. Cool is relative, but it'll help you understand exactly how the war was started, why it was started, and give you a lot more context. And I think I need to put something out about how the Pentagon is, to use my young person speak, cooked. So
I look forward to reading that piece when you get it done. Okay, I'm just going to go through the last articles really quick, because it comes down to, it's like a really well-written, well, I'll brag, kind of a well-written story as we get to the end of it here. So basically there's one on education, and basically education used to teach the values of the United Nations Charter, but now they do not. They want to instill Christian nationalism and replace everything that used to be the values of the embodied in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights with one people under a Christian God. We know that that's what their objective is. Article 27, nobody has the right to freely participate in the cultural life of your community, arts, and to share scientific advancements. No, the government has the right to restrict any cultural group, artistic practice, or scientific activity, and make any declarations they want, and ignore all science, artists, whatever, and control the benefits to society based on their own agenda, and ignore science especially. Article 28. So everyone's entitled to social and international order. Ha, ha, ha. The United States is the most powerful nation in the world and can decide without any involvement of the international order which rights and freedoms anybody in the world may or may not enjoy. We are the most powerful. We can declare for the entire world. Not, says everybody else. Sorry, we're not going to cooperate with your war, mister.
My hemisphere, it's great. I have a good time. I went to Cuba. I saw it was a shithole. And so I said, take it. I want it. We're going to make it great. Make Cuba great again. It's that, like, dude, get out
of here. Okay, that's Article 28, all about your powerful nation. Everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. Well, nobody has any duties to the community. You only have a duty to yourself and your shareholdings and your portfolio, but to your family or anybody else, no. Money is what matters. The rights of the community and the individual are only subject to the declarations of the President of the United States and maybe a few people who works for him. Declarations of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare of people fall exclusively to the President. He can decide whether you're allowed to feel good, feed yourself, and so on. Yeah, right. Okay, 2 more to go. These rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purpose and principles of the United Nations. Fuck the United Nations. Then the United Nations can go to hell.
Bankrupted. We're not going to pay them. They're not doing anything. They haven't done anything. We're going to make a council. We're going to make a board. It's board of peace. We're going to make peace. I'm good at making peace. I'm way better at peace than China. China makes bad peace. Xi Jinping, I like him. He's a great guy. Me, Xi, great friends. Me, Kim Jong-un, I respect him. He's a respectful man. I think he's better than Starmer. Starmer's a loser. He won't help me in Hormuz. Macron, he says mean things. I don't like mean things. Like, dude, like that's the president of the United States. That's what it is. That's what we got.
You're really good. You're really good at that. You're really good at that.
I have too much practice. I watched him so much that I internalized his voice. And then I have to say, I have never watched Donald Trump speak. I haven't watched Donald Trump speak for 6 months. And I will never watch him speak again because I don't need to. Because I watch what they do, not what they say. And I'm usually right about that. So, save yourself. If you want to hear Trump talk, just leave a comment and I'll do it for you. I'll give you a little bit of a cadence. But yeah, John, what's your conclusion? What's your conclusion on your analysis? What is the conclusion? I'm sure many people already have reached the conclusion that you reached, but let's just say it out loud as we wrap things up here.
Right. Well, it's very simple. The United States is run by an individual who is a narcissistic 5-year-old who has no experience with the real world and real people. All he's ever done is abuse people. And essentially what he's saying is it's almost as though this document might have been thrown on his table once, and in between, I don't know, burping and farting or whatever.
Well, he was probably had to put down Mein Kampf before he could read it.
Right. And so he read it and he got to the Article 30 that says nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity that basically goes contrary to this. And he said, I can do whatever I want. Fuck that. So basically, Donald Trump has said, I can do what I want. The United Nations doesn't matter. He's finding out that he can't do what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And that the United Nations actually does matter. And the United Nations has to revisit their own documents. And the United Nations has to follow its own declarations and get a spine and live up to what the founders and the first, leaders of the United Nations came up with. If they don't do that, then it's just going to stay bad, maybe get worse.
Yep.
Sorry to leave on such a depressing note, but your imitations were so good.
Thank you. Yeah, no, look, I think it's depressing. It's depressing to see where we are, but it's also important to state where we are because especially here in America, look, I've said it a long time, but I'm very disappointed in Americans. I really am. They're holding on to their consumerism so hard. They're like addicted. They're like a newborn who can't get off the boob. Like no matter what they do, like they're your toddler and they still that's what Americans are. They just don't want to let go of their consumerism. And they still, they eventually, maybe Trump's war will push the US economy to the brink. Maybe when they can't buy food, I've said it's when they can't buy food. Maybe it'll be gas, maybe all these people, he promised them to bring down the price of gas. And now their gas prices are up.
Oh, yeah.
And, the rich people, to be honest with you, they don't really have an incentive to open this strait, if you think about it, other than international pressure, because America's major export is oil. It's going to raise prices on people here, but they don't care about Americans. They care about themselves. So, it's interesting where we're going to see whether or not that goes. But, we acknowledge it. We acknowledge that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which America signed, right? They signed that. They were there. They were part of that. They have broken not only their promise to the world, but they've broken even the promises that the U.S. Constitution provides. The U.S. Constitution should mirror the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It should contain every single element of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It should be enshrined. And the fact that the US Constitution lacks any kind of update or any kind of new angle on how to operate in a changing world, it goes to show that our government doesn't work. What America needs, and I've said this last year, maybe, I don't know, June, we need another constitutional convention. We need to sit down and decide what we want our Constitution to be. That's not an act of rebellion. That's not an act of anything. That's a bunch of smart people deciding to sit down and say, this is what we want America to be.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. They
Right.
can't arrest you. That's not terrorism. That's a think tank. They exist. So that's what we need. If we look and see that it is so broken, we can free ourselves of the notion that it's worth protecting and begin to think about how it needs changing.
Right.
And I think that what you did for this episode, I'm very grateful that you took the time to do this, because I think you laid it out so well. And there's just no arguing. There's no arguing with what you've established. Your process, Socratic, your questioning, legit. It worked out well. And I'm grateful that we've been able to give almost 600 people these insights today.
Right.
So for all of you who are with us, thank you. If you want to support John, you see someone already scanned it. Thank you for doing that. You can scan the QR code here on the screen. It will take you to John's Substack, where you can follow him and hear about his music and his great writing about just the world, his perception. And he's tuned into a lot of different things, and his perspective is always worth reading. And his music is super cool and worth listening to. So make sure you make your way over there and support John. It's just, I'm so grateful to have John as a friend and a colleague, and that we work collaboratively on this show, because it's something that is very special to me. And it's probably my favorite show that I do.
Thanks.
Because it's fun, because we think, because I'm not just reporting on stuff. We're growing. We're having a dialogue. Like I'm a fan of Socrates. I read Plato. Like this is my jam, right? So every analyst should also be a philosopher. That's my take. If you're going to be an analyst, you also need to be a philosopher. If you want to be a good citizen, you need to be a philosopher. If you want to engage in your democracy, you need to be a philosopher. Anyone can be a philosopher. It's not a degree. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of carrying out and interpreting the world. And it's about asking the questions that consumerism has indoctrinated people not to ask. So take that with you.
So well said. So well said,
folks.
Shane.
So,
way to go.
If you guys want to support me in my work, what we got on the QR code right here on the screen, that's my link tree. So you can go to my link tree, and it has a bunch of different links on there. It's my TikTok, my X, my Blue Sky. You can donate directly to me and support the Firebrand Project there as well. You can click on that donate link. It takes you to Buy Me a Coffee, where you can make a single time donation. Paid subscriptions are really helpful. Your paid subscriptions and everything you've been doing has us at, I believe, 39 in world politics today. And that's huge. And this is my fun show. This is the thing I like to do. But what I really do is I report on the global, wider world. My major commitment right now, there's a couple, but it's to covering the war in Iran, giving you guys a real, factually transparent back picture. I'm using data. I'm using the real on the ground footage. I'm using aggregation, cross-checking multiple sources. If you want to know what's going on in Iran, come read what I'm doing, because I'm committed to transparent, open source, verifiable reporting, because there's really no one doing it. They're not bringing enough receipts. I'm doing it because my commitment is to global democracy. My commitment is to providing citizens and citizen journalists alike the tools to make your own decisions, the same information that is provided to the Washington Post or CNN before they decide to gut it, curate it, and give you the story they want. I'm here to give you guys the baseline to make real decisions. And I've got a good record. My track record's good. I will say my analysis for the pre-war, it's tracking with what I've got. So I have a solid background in being, you can read my Substacks. I promise I have done pretty good. So if you want to be consistently updated on a lot of these things, as well as the war in Sudan, as well as the war in Ukraine, as well as global politics, all these things, go ahead and come on over and support me, follow me. And I'm going to keep doing what I do best, which is giving you guys the best information I can so global democracy can persist and survive, because I believe democracy is the best system that we have for protecting universal human rights. Because human rights are the foundation of a successful society. The second you relegate a different person into a lesser class, you open up the road to domination, as John put so very well earlier. And I would really appreciate it if you guys leave this live stream and go have a conversation. I'm really challenging you right now. Go have a conversation. Don't just internalize this and go sit on your couch. Call your friend. Say, I just watched something crazy. And it turns out that the United States is violating every single article of the Declaration of Human Rights. Talk about it. You're now armed with this information. You are armed with this. This is a gift that we have put our work into. John put his work into to give this to you. Make sure you use it. And with that, John, is there anything you want to add before we say goodbye to folks this week?
Well, you've just raised a good point, and maybe I should just publish the document I read from. I should maybe publish this as a post, and I'll
maybe attach it to the live stream when you post the recording. We could have you send that to me. I'll put it in there as well.
Okay.
And we'll have the document attached underneath so that people watching the recording also have the document.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, because there may be a few more details that I didn't quite get to. Shane, thank you for all of this. Yeah. Our weekly dialogue is something I look forward to every time we do it. We don't always get to do it every week, but it's the highlight of my week. So I look forward to whatever we decide to do next, which, folks, we haven't decided yet. We tend to talk about it a few days beforehand.
Yeah, we'll chat after this because I do have time to chat. Usually I have to sprint away the last couple weeks, and I haven't gotten my 20 minutes to chat with John after. So today I'm very excited. We're going to be able to chat after. And the question is, how are you being paid? We're not. Any money that we make is from your support. We are not backed. That's why I'm an independent analyst. That's why John is a composer. He's not a composer for. He does what he does because he likes to do it. I do what I do because I think it's my responsibility. Because if no one else will do it, I will. And that's right. John, I'm certainly kind of feels the same way.
Well, you're never going to see on the dialogue, you're never going to see us interrupt our conversation to say, oh, you have to go buy this product because, I've got a sponsor and I've got to talk about my face cream now. No, it's not going to happen with us. No, that's guaranteed.
And if I ever do a product, it's because I really believe in it. I wouldn't just be like, hey, Surfshark is a VPN that'll protect you from any kind of malware on the internet. I've been using Surfshark for 2 weeks, and I have to tell you, the amount of crappy ads for oatmeal I've gotten has gone down tremendously. The government's not tracking me, but Surfshark is sharing that data with the government. So there you go. All right, folks, that's all I got for you. Thank you so very much. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the dialogue. And we will see you very soon. So thank you very much. Go talk to somebody. Go have a dialogue yourself. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.